Good morning, children. I hope all of you are doing well and keeping safe. Today we are going to hear a story and we are going to learn a lot of things. After playing in the evening, Abhi gets tired and asks his mother to take him back home. While returning back home, Abhi spots a ferocious dog running towards them. Abhi gets very scared and he asks his mother to take him back home as soon as possible. His mother assures him. She says, "Don't worry, Abhi. We will get back home safe. That dog is not going to harm you." Abhi is still scared, so they hurriedly walk back home. Back home, Abhi spots his pet dog Fluffy playing in the garden. Can you spot Fluffy? Isn't Fluffy cute? As they walk towards home, Abhi gets a doubt. Mother, is a Fluffy so cute, and why does he come and lick me and greet me whenever I'm coming back home, whereas the dog on the street was ferocious and he scared me? To this, Abhi's mother replies, "That's because he's a wild dog and our Fluffy is a domesticated dog or a pet dog." Abhi gets curious. He says, "Mother, what's a wild dog?" So his mother says, "For that you will have to understand, what does wildlife mean?" Abhi, being a curious child, asks his mother, "So what does it mean, mother?" So his mother tries to explain to Abhi what wildlife is. Let us also have a look at what is wildlife. Okay, so can you first identify which animal is this? That's a sloth. Right, sloth is a wild animal. Do you have a pet sloth, or have you seen a sloth as a pet in your friend's house? No, right? Because not all animals can be domesticated. So all living things that are not domesticated are called as wildlife. Also, these animals live in an area which is their natural place. That is, it is their natural place of living. For example, a desert has a different kind of wildlife. For example, it has cactus as its plant, and a very popular animal, that is a camel, lives in desert only. The same way the forest, the grasslands and the ocean has its own wildlife. You have to note that wildlife includes both animals and plants. Now, among all the natural places, forests are the richest in wildlife. After knowing what wildlife is, Abhi gets curious and he asks his mother if she could give him some examples. His mother says, "Sure, let us look at some examples." The shark and its babies live in the ocean, along with other smaller oceanic animals. The oceanic floor is covered with moss and seaweed and other oceanic plants. All of these coexist inside the ocean, which is the ocean wildlife. The grasslands, like the name represents, has grass and other herbs, shrubs, and short trees growing in it. There are a lot of animals like zebras and wild buffaloes which live in the grassland and feed on this grass. The desert, we all know, has very less water, so it has the kind of plants which can grow in this dry form of land, like the cactus, the short dry grass. And here we can see a lynx cat strolling stealthily in the desert. Now Hubby is very happy after he knows about wildlife, and he suddenly remembers that he's very tired and he needs to eat something because he's hungry. So he looks at his mother and says, "Mother, I'm very hungry. Let's go and eat something." His mother smiles and says, "Yes, we will, but before that you have to freshen up." As Abhi goes and freshens up and changes his clothes, he smells something from the kitchen. Now he's excited, so he runs to the kitchen to see what's cooking. After freshening up, Abhi makes a dash for the kitchen and finds his father cooking. "Father, what are you cooking? It smells so nice." His father asks him to guess, and he says, "It smells very delicious and spicy. Is it biryani?" His father says, "Yes, it is biryani. We are going to have biryani for dinner." Abhi is very happy, and he goes on to tell his father what he learned. He said, "You know what? Mother just told me that forest is the richest in its wildlife." Abhi's father looks at him and says, "Interesting, but do you even know what forests are?" I do, but I would like to learn more," says Abhi. "Okay, then let's learn something about forests while I finish cooking." As Abhi's father is telling him about forests, let us also take the time and learn a little about forests. Okay, so I'll ask you some questions and you'll try to think of the answers and then I'll tell you the answers. Okay, so what do you think is the size of a forest? Is it like very small, or is it big, or is it very big and large? Did you guess very big and large? Then you're right. Forest is a large area. How do you think is the growth in the forest? Is it like there are no trees at all, or there are some trees here and there, or it's a thick growth? Yes, it has a thick growth of different kinds of trees. Okay, these might include small trees or short trees, which are also called as shrubs, or the ones that grow very near to the earth, which are the grass or the herbs. And then there can be huge trees which are many years old, right? So it has a thick growth of different kind of trees. Now, who lives here? Who lives in the forest? So forest is a home to variety of other living things, like different kind of trees, which we already saw, and different kind of animals. The forest has the insects, it has the animals, it has the reptiles like lizards and snakes. So all these living things coexist in a forest, right? Also, forests are of different kinds as the climatic conditions change. For example, the cold climate might have a different kind of forest, or a forest which is situated in a very hot area will be different. Now, how are these different? These are different in terms of what grows in them or what kind of animals live in the forest, right? Now, if the forest is situated in very cold area, then it will have different kind of trees and different animals such as snow leopard or the reindeers or the moose living in them, right? So let us have a look at different types of forests. So before we jump into the kind of forest, I already told you that the forests are different in different regions because of the different climatic conditions or the different climate which exists in those areas, right? So before we jump into that, just for your reference, let us look at how these forests are divided. If you see, this is a globe, right? The globe is divided into different regions. The middle of the globe, we imagine that there is an imaginary line called equator. Now, this globe is divided into different zones. This is the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and the sixth one is below it, just like this, right? Now, if I cut this globe along this line, it will open up to look like this. Now this looks just like the maps that you might have seen in your social book or geography book or anywhere else, right? In this map, can you situate where India is? Yes, this is India, right? So we'll see what kind of forests we have in India as well. Now, the first kind of forest is the tropical rainforests. They are near the equator. That means, if you see, this is the equator. So these forests generally exist in this region. And if you see, this is India, and almost half of India is in this region, the tropical region, right? Because we all live in Hyderabad, which is in the southern part of India. Do all of you know where Hyderabad is? Hyderabad is somewhere here. Okay, so because we all live in the southern part of India, we all know how hot it is throughout the year, and that is the characteristic climate that we have, right? So tropical region mostly has a hot climate. So these are known as tropical rainforests. They are near the equator. Their trees have broad leaves like teak and rubber, and animals such as tigers, leopards, monkeys, birds, snakes, insects, frogs, lizards live in these forests. The next are the temperate deciduous forests, right? These exist in the cooler temperature, which is this area, right? And this area here. So if you see, we are proceeding towards the cooler temperatures. So these areas are cooler because they have less heat from the sun and they experience a winter season. Do we have a winter season in Hyderabad? We live here, right? So do we have like a winter season? Do we have snowfall? Do we have all that in Hyderabad? No, right? Because we live in the tropical region. All the areas which are situated in this region, the subtropics and the temperate region, are colder than the areas which are here. Hence, we have cooler temperatures. Trees such as oaks and birches and maples grow here, and animals such as bears, monkeys, and squirrels live here. The next are the coniferous forests. These are between polar and temperate region. This is the polar region and this is the temperate region. So these forests exist here. The same way, this is the polar region, this is the temperate region, and these forests exist here. What are the kind of trees we have here? The pine and the spruce. And the animals like moose, reindeer, and wolves. So what are these called? Coniferous forests. Now look at some pictures of these forests. What do you think this is? See, these are very thick. These are the trees with broad leaves. They look like these are deciduous forests. Look how colorful they are because the temperatures are cool and they experience an autumn season where the leaves turn from green to different colors like you can see here, and eventually all these leaves will fall to the ground. The trees will shed their leaves and then again regrow new leaves. How cool is that? This can be seen in the. And then we have the coniferous forest. Have you noticed how coniferous sounds similar to the shape of the trees here? They are conical in structure and hence the name coniferous forest. These are conical in structure and they have very thin sharp leaves. This allows them to shed the snow that falls on them. So whenever there's a snowfall, these being the shape in which they are, they can easily survive the snowstorm and the snowfall, and hence they have adapted themselves to that shape to live in that region. Tropical rainforest, temperate deciduous forest, and the coniferous forest. We saw how different kinds of trees that grow in the forest of different kinds. Here is a picture from your textbook, your science textbook, and this shows the different kind of animals that live in these forests, right? So this and this could be a rainforest or a deciduous forest, and you can see there's a bear and some parrots or macaws, and these are reindeers which are in the coniferous forest, and you can see the snowfall there because coniferous forests exist in a cooler temperature and there might be snowfall there, right? Do you remember the part 1 of our lecture where we had studied that plant and animals depend on each other? The same way, we can also imagine how important the forests are. If you remember, we had learned that the animals depend on plants for various things. And the same thing applies for the forest, right? For example, it provides us with oxygen. The roots, leaves, barks of the trees that are in the forest are used to make a lot of medicines which can cure a lot of diseases. The trees can be cut and their wood or timber is nothing but wood, can be used to make houses, furniture, ships or whatever the wood can be used for. Also, if you know, the roots are well inside the ground, right? So the roots hold the soil very firmly. And what does this prevent? Soil erosion. So whenever there is a huge rain or a very strong wind, the soil just doesn't get washed away or it just doesn't fly away with the wind. So what happens is these trees and their roots hold the soil together, and hence they prevent the soil from being washed away, right? So this is also called as soil erosion. The soil being washed away is known as soil erosion, and the forests prevent that. Okay. Now, they also provide us with honey and some edible fruits. The honey is made obviously by the bees which live in the forest. Groundwater. So how does forest give us or replenish the groundwater? Now we know that the soil of the forest is held by the roots of the trees, and this prevents soil erosion, right? So whenever the water falls on the ground, there is enough soil, and we already know forest has a very thick growth. So the firm soil and the thick growth of the forest does not allow water to just flow away. They hold the water, and this water slowly seeps into the ground, and it gives us a layer of water beneath the earth, which is the groundwater. Now, you all know this because you all might have bore wells in your house. You can ask your father or mother and they will tell you that they have a bore well where they switch on the switch of the motor and the overhead tank in your house gets filled with water, right? So what are you doing? You are taking the groundwater and filling up your tank. So how does this groundwater get replenished? So whenever there are rains, the water slowly seeps into the ground. Have you noticed how when you water the plants, the water magically disappears into the soil? So that's what happens. Soil has the property of taking the water in, and it slowly sends the water into the ground.